Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. In this one I'm going to show you how to do an oil, air and fuel filter on a Skoda Superb turbo diesel as part of its annual service. So let's get started. The parts you're going to need for this job is obviously an oil filter, air filter and fuel filter. The correct grade of oil, make sure you've got enough of it. This vehicle in question takes 5 litres exactly. And also get some diesel just to top up your fuel filter. Another thing I like to do is buy a new sump plug to replace the old one when you empty out the oil, as the seal, once you've undone the old one, it actually breaks the seal on it. Replacing the air filter is actually the quickest and easiest of these jobs, so we'll get that one done first. All you have to do on this model of the car is unscrew 8 screws, the 25 torque screws, and then once you've unscrewed them all, you don't have to take them all out, you just, once you unscrew them, lift the whole cover off and that will expose the air filter. Then all you have to do on that is take the air filter out, just make sure it's all cleaned out. If there's any leaves or dirt, just try and clean out the weak chamber where the air filter is placed. And then you just put in the new air filter, put the cover back in place, and then screw up the 8 screws so they're nice and tight. And that's that job done. The next job we'll do is replace the fuel filter. On this model of car, the fuel filter is located to the left hand side of the engine in front of the coolant expansion tank. To take it off, what we have to do is take off these 5 torque screws, so just screw them out and put them somewhere safe. Then with a little twist of the hands you can just prise the cap off it. Don't use anything like a screwdriver to lever it because that could damage it. Then just pull it back up, and then you can use like a bungee cord or a tie wrap to hold the thing back so it's not in your way. And now you can pull out the old fuel filter and dispose of it. But remember, dispose of it correctly at your local recycling centre. Don't put it in your normal trash in your residential home. Another thing I like to do is to drain all the old diesel out of the fuel chamber, so I can then get a rag and wipe it clean, the chamber clean, just in case there's any dirt in it. It might cause problems later on. Once you've done that, put the new fuel filter in its place. And then with your jerry can of fresh diesel, start pouring that diesel into the fuel chamber so that the level of the diesel is right at the brim. Doing this will mean that there'll be no air in the system and you won't have to bleed it. And now we've done that, we can now put the lid back onto the fuel chamber. When we're putting in the screws, use your fingers so you don't risk threading the bolts. Put them in, all 5 screws, and then what you want to do is use your wee torque bit, and then again tighten them up with your fingers. You want to do it evenly, so when you do one screw, you do the opposite one on the other side. And again, you're just using your fingers at this moment in time. You want to put the lid down evenly. Once you've done all those 5, you can then use the ratchet and tighten them up, but again, don't over tighten it. And then to do this final job, you need a torque wrench. And this torque wrench goes as low as 5 Newton meters. This is the setting that we need for these little tiny screws. So when you do one screw, you'll hear it click, and that means you've done 5 Newton meters. And then when you've done that, go to the opposite screw and do that one, and then the opposite screw to that as well. You're just putting this cap down evenly so to create a perfect seal. Once you've gone through all the screws one time with the torque wrench, do it again as well. Do it a few times just to make sure you've created the perfect seal. And that should change the fuel filter. Just give it a wee clean up, and then once you've done that, we can then start going to change the oil filter and oil. Before you change the oil and filter, you want to get the engine up to operation temperature, so do that first. And then raise your car up so you can get underneath it to change the oil and oil filter. You can use a trolley jack and axle stands, but I find this the best option to do this job with car ramps. For most of this segment, I'll need to tell and not show how you do this job, but there should be around about a dozen screws underneath for this cover here that you have to undo. They range from 25 and 45 torque screws. So just unscrew all of them, and it's just a plastic cover that protects the engine underneath. You just pull that down, and this is what it should look like once you've got it off. So take that out the way, and then that should expose the oil filter and the sump. Now go under the bonnet and open up the oil filler cap and pull up the dipstick. This will help the oil drain out faster. And now we can get underneath the vehicle and drain the oil. The sump plug is actually at the back of the engine, facing away to the rear of the car. So make sure you've got a basin that's big enough to take all the oil. This engine takes up roughly around 5 litres, so you'll need something bigger than that. And in this plug, it needs a 19mm socket. So just get a 19mm socket, turn it anti-clockwise to loosen it off. And once you've loosened it, you should be able just to then unscrew the rest of it with your fingers. Remember, the engine oil will be hot, so put on some safety gloves and then just unscrew it all. And remember to have that base in there as well, because it is going to come pouring out rather quickly. So once you do that, just undo the plug, let it drain out, and even just leave it for a while and just let all that oil drain out. Once we have all the oil drained out of the sump, we can now remove the oil filter. In this model of the car, the oil filter is at the front of the engine, between the front end of the engine and the radiator. This one needs a 32mm socket to remove it, and it also needs an extension rod. So just unscrew that again anti-clockwise from this angle to remove it. So here you have the old oil filter on the right inside its cap, and then you have the new oil filter on the left. Remove the old oil filter from the cap and then get some paper rags and clean out the cap of any excess oil. Once you've done that, get a little screwdriver and lever out the old O-ring. Then get the new O-ring and lubricate that in that new engine oil that you've bought, and replace it where the old oil ring used to be. Once you've done that, place the new oil filter in the cap, and then you can screw that back into its oil filter housing. Remember to tighten it up clockwise. Now that we have the oil filter back in place, we can now put the new sump plug into the sump. Screw that in with your fingers just to make sure there's no risk of thread in it. And then just give it a wee nip up with your spanner, 19mm spanner. And then what you're going to need to do is get a torque wrench and then tighten it up to the correct torque setting. With this one, it's 25 Newton meters. So just turn it until you hear a click, and then give it another wee click just to make sure it's all nice and tight. Once you're satisfied with your sump plug tightened and also your oil filter is nice tight in place, you can now put back on the engine cover. Again, it's just reversing what you did to take it off. Now we can top up the engine with the brand new engine oil. To do that, we need to look at this dipstick, and what we need to do is get the oil level between those two wee lines in the middle of that checkered part of the dipstick. So you want to get it in between that line there and that line there. You want to try and get it as close to the right as possible. On this one, this is what a good oil level would be, just close to the top of that wee line there. That means that your engine is topped up with oil. Now that you know how to check your oil level, we can now top up your engine with fresh engine oil. At this stage of the process of filling up your engine, what you need to remember is, because your car is up on ramps and therefore at an angle, and that your oil filter is empty and won't be filled until you actually start your engine, that the reading you're going to get on your dipstick won't be accurate. So at this stage, what you need to just do is top up your engine until your dipstick is more or less at the top level. And then what we'll then do is put your dipstick back into place, put in the oil filler cap, and then close over your bonnet, and then we can start your car up, get it onto the ground, let the engine run for a few seconds actually, just so that the oil filter is filled up, and then turn your engine off, and then you can check your oil level another time. And then once you've done that, if it needs a little top it up again, and hopefully that should all be done. So now that the car is on level ground and the oil filter will now be topped up with oil, we can now pull out that dipstick, and that will give us an accurate reading of what the oil level is. So because obviously the oil filter was empty when we started the car up, it will be low on oil now, so we'll just use the rest of what was in that canister to top it up, and give the dipstick a couple of checks, and again just top it up bit by bit until you get it close to that little line on the top of the dipstick. What you need to remember to do is not overfill the engine. You don't want to put too much engine oil in the engine. And this is the reading you should want on your dipstick to inform you that your engine is topped up with engine oil. Remember, this is the level you want once your car is on a level footing and that you've had your engine running for a couple of seconds to make sure that your oil filter is full. Once you're satisfied with your reading on your dipstick, you can now push it and click it into place, put in your oil filler cap, click that back into place, and now you can close over your bonnet, and that should completed everything to do your oil filter change. And that's how you change the filters and oil on a Skoda Superb diesel. If there's anything you don't understand, please leave a comment and I'll try to explain it a little better. Anyway, hope you have a good day, and goodbye.